Let's stay with this story. We can speak now with Jean-Paul Prates. He's a Brazilian senator and is the leader of the left-leaning Workers' Party in the Brazilian Senate and joins us now by Skype from Brasilia. It's good to have you with us on the programme, sir. Those recommendations have now been passed. Is this something you see as a positive step? Do you want the president to face criminal charges?
Hello, Hala. It's a pleasure to talk to you. Well, we have a great result today. It's the end of several months of work with all of the hearings being very democratic and neutral. It is not to be said that this was any kind of prosecution against the president or the government. Opposition was admitted, but governmental parties as well made their defense. But it is very difficult to defend a government that regarded the virus, its risk, the lethality, with so much disdain from the very first time the pandemic reached Brazil. So everything from the information, the official information about the pandemic, to testing schemes, to central protocols, to the purchase of equipment, everything was defective, everything was negative, everything was misconducted, especially with regard to the speeches and the examples the president gave. So we urge that Bolsonaro would now, with his almost 80 accomplices, stand to trial in domestic and international courts, yes.
But what will this achieve? What will the president's standing trial achieve? Because it's not going to bring back the 600,000 Brazilians who've lost their lives to this pandemic.
Unfortunately not. Brazil stands for 4.5 times more deaths than the average of the world. We have right now 660,000 deaths, and there are at least 12 crimes that were committed and fails. There was no testing scheme, monitoring system. There was lack of coordination between the central government and the federal authorities and the state and cities. There was central protocols for the workers and for the economic activities were not put forward. There was support for treatments without scientific evidence, medications that were provided to people completely ineffective, speeches and several government actions against social distancing.
Yes, I'm sorry to cut you off, sir. I'm sorry to cut you off, but those problems that you've outlined were problems that other countries faced as well. The United States, of course, but also European countries were struggling with the very same issues that you've outlined, and they're not recommending criminal charges against their leaders. Wouldn't you say that this is political? Because this report, these charges come ahead of presidential elections in a year's time?
Not at all, Hala. Here we had a president that went to the streets without wearing a mask, vetoed the legal establishment of the use of masks by the people, defied every time social distancing, defended false medications for people to feel free to go to the streets. He didn't give the example. On the contrary, he gave the negative example as much as possible. He delayed the economic support throughout the emergency aid. He created artificial difficulties for the procurement of vaccines. This was very enlarged by the Commission. It was proven that so many suppliers came across the Brazilian government that were ignored, even delayed on purpose. So this was a policy that was adopted by the government towards the people. They expected somehow, some stupid intelligence was there, that Brazil would go ahead and cross the pandemic and go after economic recovery before other nations. Somehow they imagined that doing something so completely different from the rest of the world, they would get more successful than the rest of the nations.
Well, so surely it should be for the voters to decide and give their verdict on whether or not the president should face these charges. And there is going to be this election next year. Are you confident your party will do well? Will you be using the pandemic in order to ask voters to make their judgment on how the situation has unfolded in Brazil?
Hala, this is not a normal situation, and this is not to be taken profit of. This is not something that we are proud of doing. So what we will have to do is to decide if we want to have a government that not only was not able to administer the pandemic as other nations did and had a record that is almost 5 times more lethal than other nations and the average of the world, as I said, but also on other aspects, on the economics, on the unemployment that is hitting the country, the rise back of the inflation, the selling of state companies that should not be sold at this time of the season with the pandemic still going out. So many things that are wrong, they will be put forward to be judged by the population, as you said. And right now, the polls indicate that Bolsonaro is not popular at all. He can hardly reach a third of the electorate in the best regions where he is normally popular. So it means that his government melted away. This government is going out. He cannot have any credibility for proposing anything serious to the country. And we are now going to expect that this lame duck will come across the finish line, or he will be disrupted by some kind of impeachment or impediment of any kind.
OK, well, we'll have to wait and see how that transpires. But Jean-Paul Prates, great to get your thoughts. Thank you so much for joining us on Al Jazeera this hour.
You're welcome. It's always a pleasure. Thank you.